Now, I've designed around 100 jerseys since last summer. Safe to say they sell pretty well. In today's video, we'll be learning how to create graphics like these, and also all of these for your clothing brand. You see, I think jerseys will really test your ability in order to making graphics and logos in Illustrator. So come along with me to learn the skills of logo design with this client project. I'll be going pretty fast, so this is not a beginner's guide. This is for the pro leagues. So let's go ahead and lock in. Now, the first thing I have is reference pieces. I've seen hundreds of brands just copy and rework logos, but I pride myself in understanding referencing and not directly tracing something. So this is the format we're going to follow. We're going to make 5 different fake sponsor logos, a main brand plus number, and then a mock-up to finally tie everything together. Here's all the references that I mentioned earlier. So let's go ahead and start creating some logos. So the first thing we're going to make is a star. So go ahead and go into the shapes panel and introduce a star real quick. Then hold Alt while you're dragging across on Mac to make a duplicate, and then press Command D to repeat that action. And then I want you to group these together, and then go ahead and press Alt again and drag down to duplicate that set. And then now we have our pattern that we're going to turn into a symbol. So I want you to go back into the shapes panel, and I want you to grab an ellipse/circle, and then I want you to go ahead and change the color to a white or gray. Using the scissors tool, I want you to cut the bottom and the top. So you're basically cutting this thing in half. Using the direct selection tool, we'll remove the other half because it's no longer needed. Now, before you even go ahead and start playing with the 3D effects, learn from this mistake. If you don't flip the circle around, because we're using classic revolve, it will end up looking something like that. So before that, I want you to right click it, transform, and then reflect it to the other direction. Now go to effects, and then go to 3D, and then go to classic, and then go to revolve classic, and then you should be left with this perfect 3D circle, which we're gonna go ahead and place our symbol pattern on. Now we need to make the actual symbol. So go ahead and navigate your symbols tab. This could be anywhere. If you can't find it, go ahead and go into the help section and type in symbols, and it'll pop up real quick. And now all you have to do is select your stars and then just add it in as a symbol. Change the name if you want to, but I'm not going to change it. I'm just going to create it as a new symbol. Now, going back into the 3D options, you can go ahead and go into these map art. And now within the map art, you can go ahead and add in your new symbol. And now all you have to do is basically play around with the actual placement of it, so it matches exactly the sort of design you want to go with. Once you're happy, I want you to press invisible geometry, and then it's going to remove all the shading and everything like that. And you're basically left with this. Go ahead and press OK. And now you basically just want to expand this and then use the image trace tool to once get this back into a vector. So go ahead and expand or rasterize and turn this into transparent or white. Doesn't really matter. Go ahead and press OK. And now from this, I want you to go ahead and go into image trace, and then once you're in image trace, I want you to go ahead and press preview so you can see what's going on. And then I want you to go ahead and remove color or ignore color, which is going to be white. And now you're left with this object here, and once you've done, go ahead and go to object, expand, and expand it into a simple vector object. Let's go ahead and add a new circle / an ellipse, and let's go ahead and just send this one to the back. Simply change the color so you can visually see it against our new object that we've made, and align it with the other object. Now you run into an issue where it doesn't align perfectly, so this way you're gonna just have to do it by eyeball because the shapes are different. Selecting the new shape, I want you to go object, path, offset path, and do this accordingly, but 10 seems to be perfect for this. And change this to a different color again so you can visually see it. And now if you want to add another offset, you can go ahead and do that, or you can go ahead and add a stroke. For me, I like to add an offset because that means it's no longer a live object. Since we have the base of our logo, I'm going to go ahead and go into the color books and open our Pantone /CMYK color books so I can go ahead and have my colors with me while I work. Now, if you're in the new Photoshop or Illustrator, Pantones are no longer a thing for you, so you will have to get these through an older program or pay for the licensing with Pantone. Now the type I'll be using for this logo is called Baxa, and let's go ahead by just introducing it first. Then we'll make a duplicate of our logo, and with the duplicated one, we can go ahead and create outlines from the type. This allows us to edit it. Firstly, ungroup it so you can go ahead and play with the positioning of the actual font. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and drag out some rulers just so I know every movement that I make is going to be accurate and centered with everything else. What I'm doing here is I basically want the S to frame icon and series and basically become one big giant subtitle or big title for our globe that we've made. And this is just basic fundamentals when it comes to type. I'm using rulers to ensure my typography is accurate, and that's about it. And just going ahead and doing a bunch of manipulation when it comes to transform, to either just drag it up, make it smaller, just depending on what I really want. But again, I just wanted the two S's to frame icon in series. And then once I'm done, I can go ahead and group everything again and delete all the rulers. And let's go ahead and start playing with how we want this to look on our actual logo. Let's go ahead and duplicate our typography. After we've duplicated, let's go Object, Path, Offset Path, press OK. And let's go ahead and select everything. And then using the Pathfinder tool, make it all one big object. And let's go ahead and bring the original to the front. And let's go ahead and just select a different color. We'll follow by using the alignment tools towards the sides and aligning it perfectly so everything is nice and centered. Next, our objective is just to keep the color theme going within the globe to the actual type. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy that. But instead of using an offset, I'm going to go ahead and use a stroke, and I'm going to be adding more effects anyway. Before this next step, I want you to go ahead and make a duplicate of your typography. And we're going to go ahead and just head over to Effects, Warp, and then press Arc. From here, we can go ahead and go to the arch, and then we can just adjust the settings to see what you guys like or what you guys don't like. This is where you become creative and just play with it. Honestly, you have a lot of cool looks just from this simple fact here. And we'll look at some different ways later on how to achieve looks like this. But for me, arc has always been the most comfortable and easy sort of effect to go with when I want to create this sort of superstar trophy effect. Just to finish it off, I'll go back into the shapes panel and add in a star, and then just a bunch of other little things here and there, matching the same color themes as we went with for the typography. We're going to do with the star and also anything else that we add, just to bring it all together and make it look like a patch from a World Series hat. After going back and forth, I finalized on this logo. I removed the stars because I don't think they were needed and we already have too much stars going on. Let's go ahead and move on to design number 2. Now, I know that was a bit of a mission, but design 2 is a little bit easier to follow. So we're going to start with a nice little script font. I like the font personally, Amelia Script, which is basically my favorite script font at the current moment. We'll go ahead and make an outline of this and then start playing with the actual font once we ungroup everything. Because when you ungroup everything, you can basically just use a normal selection tool to basically move around all the type and everything like that. That's why I ungroup stuff. If not, you'll have to use the direct selection tool, and if you don't ungroup it or create an outline, it won't even work to begin with. So make sure you make a duplicate. That's why I went back and made a duplicate, and then I started playing with the font here and there. The goal and objective right now is to make sure all the fonts / letters connect. Once they connect, go ahead and use the Pathfinder to make it one big shape, and then we'll add a stroke. Go ahead and add a stroke and then align it to the outside. Also, for the corners, make sure it's rounded. I found that this just makes it look a bit more uniform. Let's introduce a new type. The font I'm using here is Barbie, Italic Bold. And then I'm going to go ahead and create an outline. Like before, I'll play with the type until I'm happy. The ideal goal is to create a unique shape, sort of looking like an FC logo, like, you know, football club logo. Then we'll introduce a rectangle to the mix. With this rectangle, we're going to go to Warp, Arc, and then we're going to go ahead and select the flag option. And now I'm going to play with the settings until I find a flag that I like, and then press OK when I'm ready. Don't forget to rasterize your shape when you're happy. Go ahead and make a duplicate of your flag that you've made, and I want you to go ahead and grab your type if you haven't already and make a duplicate of that as well. Drag it down until it fits into the flag, and then send it to the back. Once you're done, select both of them, go to Object, Envelope Distort, and then make with top object, and then you'll make a flag using the font that we made, which is super cool. Go ahead and grab the original font or flag and make sure you bring that one to the front. You can go ahead and double click it also if you want to switch the colors or play with the actual contents within the flag or the clipping mask, and then just line it up and you'll make this cool little icon. Let's go ahead and introduce a stroke to match the stroke that's already on our font, and then we'll simply just bring those two together to come up with this sort of logo. And then we're going to repeat the same steps. We're going to go ahead and make a duplicate of that whole thing, and we're going to expand it until all the lines are expanded and all the objects are now expanded and everything is just shapes. Once everything is shaped, you can go ahead and use the Pathfinder tool to make it one massive shape. And then from here, we can go ahead and go to Object, Path, and then Offset Path again. This time, we're just going to go ahead and make this pretty large because we basically want it to be a border for our type to make it look like a sort of a 3D sort of embroidered type. Sorry, that was just a bunch of jargon, but you get what I mean, because once you bring this all the way to the front and you offset the alignment just a little bit, you get this sort of really cool effect. Because the effect looks like the type that's on top is like casting this shadow at the bottom. And to even add to this, you can go ahead and just add a quick stroke to this. And once you add this little quick stroke, you start to see the design come together. Also for the stroke, it's aligned to the outside. And now all you have to do is basically play with colors, and that's design logo 2 complete. Now design 2 was a lot simpler to design, but it came out really good, and I like the mixture between the hard fonts like the Barbie and then something soft like the script all coming together to come up with this really cool, unique sort of logo. Design 3, yep, this one is going to be pretty tough. But basically in my head, I wanted to recreate this sort of Hot Wheels logo in a sort of aspect, and I really thought it was going to be super cool. For this, you want to start with the rectangle first. Why we're doing the rectangle is so we don't start drawing crazy lines. We need the rectangle there as a bounding box so we can guide ourselves when we're drawing the flames. Next, you'll grab the pencil tool. Now using the pencil tool, you're basically just going to draw flames until it looks correct. Now this is where the bounding box comes into play. Without this, your flames will be going everywhere. So as you can see here, I'm trying to loop in and make that sort of Hot Wheels swoop without copying Hot Wheels directly. And this is where a lot of trial and error comes into play until you're happy with the actual flames in itself. Now this doesn't have to be perfect, because you can always press Command Y, go into wireframe mode, and then use the direct selection tool to go ahead and play with the different swoops and curves. You can also use the curve pen tool to add in different curves here and there that you think make the flame look a bit more natural. As you can see, I'm going through and I'm making adjustments until I think the actual shape looks good. Now basically we're going to try and repeat what we did with the FIFC with the last logo, but on a bigger scale. So firstly, let's go ahead and fill this in with red. Then I'm gonna go ahead and just duplicate this real quick, because I'm basically gonna need only the portion of the end of the flame. Basically cut off the section that we don't need anymore. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the pencil tool to create a sort of curve to match the Hot Wheels logo. We'll highlight both of them, and then we'll use the shape builder tool to cut off the section that we actually need, and then get rid or dispose of the section that we don't need. And I'm gonna use a different color so you can see it visually. After that, I'll go to Object, Path, Offset Path, but this time I'm going to go ahead and use a negative path. Once I do that, you'll see it come to life, and then I'll use that offset that I just made to align into the original. Then we just don't need this anymore. And basically, we're going to create a clipping mask for our font, which is going to go into that orange section. Now, the font that we'll be using is Calgray 88. After turning it into an outline, we're going to go ahead and center it and then send it to the back. That way we can go ahead and select the top object, which is our main primary shape, and also our font, and then go again to Object, Envelope, Distort, Make with Top Object, and then it will form out text towards that shape. Sorry, my voice just cracked. Now, if you have a clipping mask or some sort of effect, you can go ahead and double click using the selection tool and go into the actual clipping mask and make adjustments to that, whatever is clipped, and just moving it around or even playing with the anchor points using the direct selection tool is a cool way from making your design look a bit different and adding a bit more character towards fonts that already exist. Next, I'm going to go ahead and grab the pencil tool and just draw a line following the curve of the flame. And basically, I'm going to add text towards this line. Once I have my line, I can go up and just copy it and then go to the text settings and then type on a path, and then find the path that I want to type on and paste it onto that path. And basically from here, I can just center it, make adjustments how I see fit. For this graphic, I'm going to go ahead and add an offset towards the flame, and this time it's going to be a positive offset. You don't have to put plus, you just have to put the number and make sure you don't put a negative symbol in front of it. And I'm just going to change the color so you can see what I'm working with. I'll go ahead and add an offset to this by text here as well, just to make it stand out. Instead of an offset for the found eye, I'm going to go ahead and just add a stroke, this time aligning the stroke to the outside so it has the feeling of an offset, but it's not really an offset. Just to bring everything together, I'm going to go ahead and grab the offset for the flame, and using the eyedropper tool, I'm going to go ahead and select the effects that we have on the found eye, and it's going to bring this design together and make it look nice and uniform. Essentially on the offset, there's another stroke to make it look like there's two offsets off the flame, but it's just one with a stroke. To ensure we're not copying Hot Wheels, I'm going to go ahead and add a star here, and this time I'm going to go ahead and just drag out one of the ends of the star using the direct selection tool. After I have that dragged out, out, I'm going to go in with scissors and cut those two corners or those two joining points, and then just select the part that I dragged out and then warp that section by itself. From here, I'll just play with the settings until it matches the star and the actual size and width of the original. And then once I'm happy, I'll press OK. We'll go ahead and move about the star until it matches the angle of that shooting star. And then we'll just bring everything together, either using the Pathfinder tool or just using the Shape Builder tool, whichever is easier for you. Now, to ensure consistency, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the Wi-Fi stars in the found eye, and then make sure that the star is behind that, but still in front of the actual flame. Now we have our design basically about 90% done. After this stage, it's mainly just coloring and then applying the offset that we had on the original design too. After going through back and forth on colors and stuff like that, I finalized a design like this. As you can see here, all I did was just add that off-centered offset towards the back, the same as design 2, and just finalized on this. Now the last two designs, I'm just going to skip over them because it's the same thing over and over again, just offset, path, and placements, and plus one of them is just the logo but with a star behind it. I will go ahead and make a process video if you guys really want to see how I made these, but I doubt it's anything new. Actually, it isn't anything new. It's the same exact steps we've been through. Let's go ahead and fast forward to finding the actual typography for the jersey style that we want and also creating the mock-up. So the font I'm going to be using for this graphic is High School USA Serif, and there's so much references going on from American football training jerseys all the way to, I guess, baseball, and even influences from traditional soccer jerseys. There's a lot going on here, so there's no point in making it traditional. After I get my font, I'm just going to go ahead and create an outline and make it match the original brand logo. Once you're happy with your designs, I want you to go ahead and select all of them and press Command C to copy them. Add a new artboard towards your Illustrator file and copy those over into that artboard. Now we can go ahead and start making the mock-up. Now this is the 2024 mock-ups, only available on the Studio Wheel Patreon. So with this, we're going to go ahead and just copy over the classic t-shirt because that's all we really need. And then we're going to make our adjustments from there. Go ahead and copy that into our file here. And basically we'll just use the rectangular tool or rectangular shape tool to go ahead and make our stripes that go onto the jerseys. And now using the direct selection tool, the one with the white filling, we'll just go ahead and move these anchor points until they're aligned with the actual mock-up of the shirt. We'll also do that for the top and make sure everything is centered, and then duplicate that and proceed to align it again. But also you have to make sure you're doing it properly, because if you're not, it's just going to be aligned and the mockup is going to look sloppy. Obviously it doesn't really matter towards manufacturer, but the cleaner something is, the more presentable and easy it is to read, which makes it a lot easier for manufacturing. Now, essentially, all you have to do is repeat this process or copy it over to the other side and make sure it's aligned. This is a bit tedious, especially onto the back. But again, you can go ahead and just make it from scratch. I find it that when I copy it over, I can ensure that everything is the same height and everything is placed in the same area, because the shirts are a direct reflection. So if something looks off on one side, you can go ahead and move it across to ensure that it's aligned. Now, watching this graphic come together or this piece come together is always the funnest part. So I went ahead and played with different ways on how to make the placement unique to the brand identity. And Found Icon is basically a brand based around getting popular icons, flipping them and adjusting them to the whole brand ID. And what is more iconic than a classic jersey? Again, we're going to make it in our own style. So I'm just playing around with placements and seeing how it looks better if I move it here or move it there. All comes down to what you really want with your graphic. For me personally, I'm not afraid to experiment, especially with this client, because he trusts me so much in the graphics that we've made, and we've made a lot of viral pieces together. He basically just gives me full creative control on what I'm making. So I'm basically just like, okay, this will look cool here or this will look cool here. But again, make sure you take your time when you're placing your logos on a mock-up, because essentially you're trying to build the actual final piece before you see it in real life. And it is very crucial, because you might see placement on a certain design, you're like, this looks cool, but when you do it again or when you print it and see it in person, it doesn't look as good. So take your time when you're doing this. Once you have your design ready, it's time for paint. So we're going to go ahead and go to the shape builder and scroll down until we get the live paint tool. Now, once you have this live paint tool, it does exactly what it says. It allows you to paint over things continuously because it sees the shape as now a live object within Illustrator. And you can go ahead and make different colors, different customizations. As long as the color is in your swatch or the pattern is in your swatch, it works perfectly. And now I love this tool, but there's always things that go wrong, especially if your lines are not connected or things are not grouped. You'll get a bunch of error messages, which are quite easy to fix. They're just super annoying if you can't find the actual error. So I'm going for a classic look here, white stripes, solid color blocking for the main body and the sleeves. You can also do something like a camo, something like a highlight pink, something like an orange. Your mind imagines mocking it up on Illustrator is the perfect way to see something before you go into production. Now, I hope you guys enjoy that video. I know it's a bit of a mixture between and also cutting through to get to the stuff that we need, but as you can see, the design process in terms of logos is very repetitive. It's more so how you integrate and bring everything in order to make one solid piece. I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you. Peace.